Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will discuss the internal capsule. First we see the introduction. The internal capsule is a white matter structure situated in the inframedial part of each cerebral hemisphere of the brain. It is a layer of white matter which is myelinated axons, and this internal capsule separates the caudate nucleus and thalamus medially from the lentiform nucleus laterally. So this is the relationship of different nuclei with the internal capsule, and the medially lie caudate nucleus and thalamus, and lateral to the internal capsule is the lentiform nucleus. So we see that the internal capsule is actually a bundle of white matter or bundle of white fibers, and these fibers or axons, they are ascending as well as descending. They are going to cerebral cortex, and they are coming from the cerebral cortex to different areas of the body. So we see in this picture, these are the motor fibers which are coming from the cerebral cortex, from premotor area or area 4. This is the central sulcus, this pre-central gyrus, and contains premotor area or area 4. From here these fibers come down and they converge and they pass through this structure, V-shaped structure. This is internal capsule. So these fibers, they fan out rostrally to form corona radiata. Superiorly, they are in the form of a crown, so they are corona radiata, and dense caudally to continue as crus cerebri of the midbrain. So below the internal capsule, they continue as the crus cerebri. The ascending fibers, which are also called corticopetal or sensory fibers, and the descending fibers, which are corticofugal or motor fibers, both types of fibers are present in the internal capsule, and these fibers interconnect the cerebral cortex with brain stem and spinal cord. So we see that these fibers are mainly responsible for sensory and motor innervation of the opposite half of the body. And if we see this picture, as fibers are converging here, they are in the form of compact bundle. So it's a high concentration of motor and sensory nerve fibers within the internal capsule. That is why a small lesion may produce a widespread paralytic effects or a sensory loss in the opposite half of the body. Here we see the shape and boundaries of the internal capsule. This is V-shaped structure, internal capsule. You see the horizontal section. This is a compact bundle of white fibers, and its concavity is directed laterally. So this part is lateral and this is the medial part. And these are the different relations: medially caudate nucleus and thalamus, and laterally this is the lentiform nucleus. This whole is the lentiform nucleus, which has different parts, and we will study afterwards. So if we see the different parts or divisions, it has anterior limb, then this bending part or genu, and then it is the posterior limb. In this picture, We also see in different parts of the internal capsules and its relations. Here also medially coded nucleus. This is thalamus, and this is the lentiform nucleus, which has further divided into globus pallidus and the putamen. And here we see different fibers or tracts which go through this internal capsule in different regions. This is also a cross section. Here we see the internal capsule. This is left side of the internal capsule. This is right internal capsule. Both are V-shaped. And this is lentiform nucleus. And this is thalamus. Here is the caudate nucleus. Similarly, on the left side, this is caudate nucleus. These are medial relationships, and medially posterior limb has medial relation with the thalamus. This is thalamus on both sides, and this is lentiform nucleus on the left side. Now we see in detail the anterior limb. This is anterior limb. It is located between the, this is caudate nucleus medially, and laterally the lentiform nucleus, which has globus pallidus and putamen. And it contains different types of fibers. These fibers run from the thalamus to the frontal lobe. So fibers going from thalamus to the frontal lobe are present in the anterior limb. Second type of fibers are fibers which connect the lentiform nucleus. This is lentiform nucleus. These fibers connect lentiform nucleus to the caudate nucleus. So these fibers also go through the anterior limb. The third type of fibers are fibers that connect the cerebral cortex with the corpus striatum. This is corpus striatum. Collectively, caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus, they are called corpus striatum. So the fibers which connect cerebral cortex, they also pass through the anterior limb. Next, fibers passing from the frontal lobe to the pontine nuclei, they also go through this. And next, the pontine fibers from thalamus to the pons, they also pass through this anterior limb. This is an enlarged picture, and we see different types of fibers in the anterior limb. The anterior thalamic radiation, frontopontine, other corticofugal fibers. Next we see a genome. It contains corticobulbar or corticonuclear fibers. Here is the genome. This is corticobulbar fibers. They go through the internal capsule through its part genome. Next is the posterior limb. If we see the location of the posterior limb, it is located between thalamus and the lentiform nucleus. Here we see thalamus, and this is lentiform nucleus, and in between these two is the posterior limb of the internal capsule. So it contains the sensory, mainly sensory fibers for sensory radiation. These are general sensations, pain, temperature, touch. Also contains descending fibers or motor fibers, corticospinal fibers, and special senses fibers, which are visual and auditory radiations. Here is the corticospinal tract, corticopontine, and these are medial geniculate and lateral geniculate body. From medial geniculate body, the auditory radiations go to the temporal lobe, and from the lateral geniculate body, the optic radiations, they go to the occipital lobe in the area 17 or optic area. Here in this picture, we again see a different type of tracts or fibers. They pass through different areas of these this internal capsule. This anterior limb having different types of fibers. This is genu, this is posterior limb, and this is medial geniculate body, lateral geniculate body, and here from medial geniculate body, auditory radiations, they go to the primary auditory area. And from the lateral geniculate body, these fibers, the optic radiations, they go to the visual cortex or area 17. Again, this picture shows different parts of cerebral of the internal capsules and its relations on medial side and on lateral side, and bundle of fibers which go through the internal capsule. In this picture, we can see the fibers. They are coming from the cerebral cortex. Here they are forming corona radiata, and they converge, and this part is the internal capsule, and these fibers are the projection fibers, basically the projection fibers which pass through this internal capsule, as we have studied. And there are three types of fibers. There are white matter on the cerebral cortex, association fiber, commissure fibers, and the projection fibers. So the projection fibers which interconnect the cerebral cortex with different parts of the brain, they are forming the internal capsule. Now we see the blood supply of the internal capsule. We see the anterior limb. It is supplied by the medial striate branches, which are coming from the anterior cerebral artery. Second is lateral striate branches, which are also called lenticular striate, and these are the branches of the middle cerebral artery. So anterior limb has two main sources, anterior cerebral and the middle cerebral arteries. The genu has blood supply from the internal carotid artery. They have direct branches from this artery, or it has pallidal branches of the anterior choroidal artery. Pallidal branches which go to the globus pallidus. From that, blood vessels, they supply the genu. The posterior limb is supplied by the branches of the anterior choroidal and lenticular striate branches of the middle cerebral artery. So two main sources here, anterior choroidal artery and the middle cerebral artery. Now we see that if we ligate the anterior choroidal artery, it results in the infarction of the corticospinal tract. These are the fibers which coming from the cerebral cortex and going to spinal cord, and destruction of the inner segment of the globus pallidus due to this occlusion of the blood vessels. So we see that this, in case of this ligation of the arteries, the patient will have contralateral hemiparesis on the opposite side of the body, and also a contralateral reduction of the rigidity. Now we see on one MCQ, a capsular stroke is most commonly caused by occlusion of which of the following arteries: anterior cerebral, recurrent artery of Habener, lateral striate arteries, posterior communicating artery, direct branches of the internal carotid. So here we see that the anterior limb, which supplies the lateral striate branches of the middle cerebral artery. Here we see this blood vessels. This lateral striate branches of the middle cerebral artery, which supply the anterior limb. They are responsible for the capsular stroke. Thank you.